Overrated, underrated, the role of patient education in therapy success.
I think it's significantly underrated. Once I have an idea of what's going on, I spend a decent amount of time explaining to them how the more they understand will directly affect their ability to get themselves better. And then I usually end the visit by making them explain to me what's going on.
Our guest today truly believes PT should be the gateway to the health system. And whether you agree or disagree with them, it's a great conversation. And it's not just anecdote. His clinic in upstate New York or Hudson Valley, New York, depending on where New York you are, Feldman Physical Therapy and Performance is a living, breathing example of this. So we get into that conversation with our guest today, Justin Feldman. Now, my question to you before we kick off the episode, where's your career going? Either you're just graduating, just getting going in the first couple of years of your career, or maybe you're like, I don't know, I feel like I've grown roots. Well, you don't have to have those. There are PTs who just want to take that license and see where it can take them. We call them extraordinary patient care adventures. And our friends at Jackson Therapy Partners, they've got places all over. They're looking for people just like you. Discover where your skills can take you at jacksontherapy.com. Now, if you own a clinic, you're thinking, everything's getting tighter. Reimbursement, it's just not keeping up. Would you like to add $290 per patient per quarter? How am I going to do that? Well, the answer is remote therapeutic monitoring. And Physiotech has figured it out on how to make it easy. Get kickstarted with remote therapeutic monitoring right now at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. Finally, if you're frustrated with your EMR, I don't even want to hear it anymore. I hear it enough on Twitter or Facebook groups with PTs. There's a better option out there, and it's called MW Therapy. All-in-one outpatient PT EMR, integrating patient portal, marketing, billing, all in one app. Switching over, that's a breeze too. I know that gives you a headache, but over here at MW Therapy, it's a breeze. Find out what they can do with you. Maybe even take a test drive at mwtherapy.com. All right, welcome back to the show. Justin Feldman here. This is weird because normally I talk to people who are geographically so far away from me, but you're like not far. You're, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now I'm like, all right, well, I mean, eventually we should probably meet up and actually just have a beer or something. And
yes,
we're working on that. You told me do I have this right? There's a physical therapist who left physical therapy to brew beer, and they opened a brewery in Poughkeepsie.
Yes. So him and his Kevin Marquis, his name. His son went to school for brewing beer, and is like a whatever you call that, a master beer brewer. And so he stopped treating in order to go into business with his son to do that.
There's also one, and I've never been, but someone told me about, and I think they have like a lot of like anatomy named beers, and this was in Denver. It's in Colorado, definitely.
Okay.
And someone told me another PT. I don't know if it's like a thing now that PTs do. We leave and do other things. We brew beer. There was in New England somewhere. So that's kind of fun. And I'm sorry, what was the name of it again? The one in Poughkeepsie?
Blue Collar Brewery. Blue Collar.
I mean, I feel like that's worth a trip to Poughkeepsie.
It is. They brew very good beer. Yes.
All right. So Justin, what's your superhero origin story? You're sitting, if you're watching a live stream, if you're looking at the video, you're sitting in just like a awesome looking space. You're in a gym facility. So give PTs, other PTs, the context.
Yeah. So basically, when I had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do business-wise, I wanted to be in a setting with active people. And I approached the people at Gold's about the idea of being here and sort of in this space. And I felt like it gave me a captive audience right away. But also it just gives me access to everything around me. And it's been a great partnership. We've been here for a little over 10 years now.
That's awesome. So you were doing like that idea 10 years ago was pretty innovative. I feel like a lot of people are doing it now. It's pretty it's obvious now, but 10 years ago, I don't think that was that obvious.
It was a different thing. And pretty much everybody told me that it wasn't going to work because they felt like I was going to be like competing with the personal trainers or that I would be competing with the gym or anything like that. And if anything, it's been a great, partnership. I get probably, we get a little bit of business from people that are from the gym, but if anything, we get to get people in on the PT side, and then we could sort of naturally walk them through like a health fitness journey right
Yeah.
out the door. And we get a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise come into a gym. They just didn't feel comfortable. And then they come in and realize that it's not an intimidating space.
Right. What was the you mentioned when people tell you it's not going to work, right? And we hear that a lot.
Hmm.
And one of my favorite pictures of it's not going to work is Jeff Bezos sitting at like a Windows computer with a banner behind him, like spray painted, like
Yeah.
Amazon.com. And it's like, would you have invested in this guy? It's like, I don't know, man. Right. So when people tell you it's not going to work, a lot of times those people are projecting. Like they are projecting their insecurities on you. And like, Adam Sandler had a great bit where he just kept repeating, they're all going to laugh at you. Like they're all going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
And the funniest part of they're all going to laugh at you for me was with Sandler is like, that was the point. I'm a comedian. So like, he played on that. So
Right.
it's never going to work. What was the conversation like with the gym owner, with the personal trainer, which said, hey, I know this might not look like it lines up. And a lot of people are going to say this isn't going to work. But what was the conversation that you had like from your end to sort of build that bridge? Because you had to build it.
I was really, really lucky in that the gym owner and sort of the family that owned the gym, they believed in it right from the beginning.
That's cool.
Um, in actuality, they were pushing me to do it before I was even ready to do it.
Oh,
And so I kind of thought, all right, I'm secure in my job and what I'm doing, and it's a big risk, and there's no reason to do it. But essentially, every time I saw them, it was more of a, "Are you ready? Are you ready now? Are you ready now?" And when I was ready, it was just go. They were all on board right away. I think they saw the possibility even greater than what I saw, and we're just kind of like, nope. Tell us what you need to make it happen. Even I mean the space we're in is, I don't know the exact dimensions, but I thought I needed just like a treatment room, and that was it. And the owner was like, no, you need a good space. You need to really have it look like your own. Um, and we need to make sure that it really looks like a professional space that's separate from
there
the
is
gym.
right. And for the people not looking at the stream is like what am I looking at, like sort of a place where like they're serving food and stuff like that, which I'm guessing is near the front desk, like near the front, the
Yes.
check-in. Yeah.
So there's like a shake bar behind
Yeah.
me. And it was, even, he picked the location in the gym with where I
Good
was going to
traffic. I mean, right at
go.
the beginning, right? I mean,
Yeah.
shoot.
Said people will see you, they're going to go, they're going to grab a shake, or they're going to sit. And that, initially when I first opened, if I didn't have any patients, I just sort of sat out there.
Yeah.
And I never drank so much coffee in my life because I would just keep drinking coffee to strike up conversations with
Right,
people.
right, right.
Um, and didn't sleep great, but it was a great way to just meet people and talk about what I was doing. And they may not have needed me at the time, but over the years, many of them have come in for different things,
Plant that seed,
and it's been
man.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
best time to plant the seed is when you're not doing something, right? And
Yes.
you can't be collecting fruit from something you haven't planted yet. So that's great. And you said
Hmm.
10 years,
10 years. Yep.
still going strong, huh?
Still going, coming up on 11. Yeah. And the family that owns this gym has another one, like in Fishkill, a little ways south of us, like 20 minutes south. And so after we were here for about a year, same sort of idea. They said, okay, you have to, they pushed me to put one
Expand.
in the other one. And I kind of thought, well, I'm not really sure if I'm ready yet. We've barely been here a year. And
Wow.
they sort of said, don't do it. Like, that was the greatest thing, was them just sort of pushing me outside my comfort zone the whole time.
That's cool because like they had it sounds like there was a lot of faith because that is a leap.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I said this to someone the other day. I won't say who because I don't want to blow up their spot, but it's someone who's like, I call it like they're clutching the edge of the diving board. It's like, I'm talking about it a lot. I think Jamie Schreier, who I talk to a lot, he's like, they're in the I'm gonna phase.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
I just had to look at this guy, and he's a friend for a long time. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal, man. You leap, then the net shows up. I mean, rare. I won't say never, but it's rarely the other way around where it's a complete layup and you just walk right in this opportunity. I'm like, it's not a leap. You have to leap, then the net appears.
Yep.
Rarely the other way.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it sounds like they softened that and they had faith, which is a big deal.
They did, and they made it. You know, they made it just like an opportunity I couldn't turn down.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole time it was just what can we do to make it better, easier, help do different things.
Yeah.
And also when I was first starting, just the idea that I wasn't in a space by myself. So I had, I didn't necessarily have coworkers, but I could walk out here and talk to people, and
Right.
it wasn't like I was sitting in a box by myself.
Correct. Which is a little scary and intimidating and just like sort of
Yeah.
lonely, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about your philosophy on making physical therapy, the experience, actually
Yeah.
enjoyable and actually engaging for the people that we actually get to serve.
Yeah. I think, so my philosophy, basically, I sort of stole it from my father when I was like 5 and he was sort of teaching me how to ski.
Okay.
His big thing was like the only rule was that you just had to have fun. And when I was doing this, I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to be, we're cash based or self pay. And people have to want to come in here. And initially, people call and, no one's no one's ever calling you for a great reason. They're not, but if you can make it fun and enjoyable and make it so that all of a sudden the time goes by and they kind of can't wait to come back, they sort of don't realize they're getting what they need while they're being entertained and having a good time. And so we have a lot of PT students that rotate through here, and I sort of challenge them less from the side, like the treatment side and sort of the like anatomy. And, I want them to remember every patient's kids' names or where they're going on vacation or what we talked about in the last visit, so that when they come back in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you can sort of pick up that conversation right where they left off and ask, how was your daughter's wedding? Or, how did this go? How did that go? And it's amazing how like the bar in healthcare today is kind of low to impress
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And when they come back, they can't believe you remember these little details about what they're doing. And if you're joking about things, you knew where they were going out to dinner or what they were doing, it just builds this connection where they want to come back.
Sure.
If people don't need to come in for a little while, and all of a sudden they get back, they sort of come in, and sometimes I got to start to like redirect them to like, hey, we got to get into some of the real stuff here because we just spent a half an hour talking.
Right. 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 Right.
But they love it, and that's I think just being able to joke around with them and make it an enjoyable experience, all of a sudden takes them in a different direction than what they were expecting.
I think that, and I won't say where, I'm doing a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
keeping people anonymous, but in
Yeah.
a couple of my clinical affiliations, it very much was you do the talking thing for 5 minutes, then you do the hands thing for 15 minutes, and
Yep.
then you do the other thing, the moving thing for 15 minutes, then you hand them off to someone else who does some more moving things, and then they're gone. And I remember thinking, but what if they need more of the talking thing? What if I need more of the talking thing because I don't know really what's going on? I haven't gotten there yet. You can pretty much figure it out in 3 to 4 questions. And I remember as a 33-year-old second career professional sitting with a lot of my CIs were younger than me. And I remember thinking, I've been interviewing people for a long time and I never know how many questions it's going to take because this is a
Yeah.
person and I don't think we've met more complicated things on this
Yeah.
planet than people.
Oh yeah, and it amazes me how sometimes, you know, you get to the real meat and potatoes of what the issue is or what's really important to them, when you're not talking at all about why their back hurts or their neck hurts or their, knee hurts, and you start to figure out what they're really missing out on because of it. And it's amazing to me even when I talk to people like if I'm explaining to somebody what's going on with them, hey, maybe this is why this is happening, the way I explain it is completely different if they're an artist or an engineer or an architect or a physician or something else. And sometimes you realize that, these people in these different roles look at things so differently. You can really get a good idea into how I'm going to mold with them and get them to understand what's happening and buy into the process.
Some people want to know exactly what's going on, and some people are like, just tell me what to do. And then there's those are those archetypes of people, and
Yeah.
also those people aren't just that type of person with everything. Like with my car, I kind of
Hmm.
don't care.
Yep.
Like I'm like, just what do I need to do to make this safe and to get me places? Other things, I'm like, I want to know how that works. So a simple question or trying to or being open-minded to say, I need to figure out what type of person this is. You want to know everything, you want to know nothing, just do it.
Yeah.
Are you a hybrid in the middle somewhere? Because that could make someone's experience like, do your TMI, like, I don't care, like, this guy, all
Right.
he wants to do is talk about muscles and bones. And then other people are like, I dig it, man, tell me more about that Anconius, like, what's that again? I never heard of that. So, like, know your
Exactly.
audience. I mean,
Yeah.
now I start to see the parallels of communications in PT, like I guess I should say mass communications in PT, right? Like advertising campaigns and the things I did before PT. And the step one was, who am I talking to?
Yeah.
I gave a conversation the other day where it was like, I speak differently to my best friend than I do to my grandmother. Like that's a comical example. Of course you would. I
Yeah.
talk in different ways. I use some 4-letter words with my buddy, not so many 4-letter words with Gammy. We talk about different things. We talk for different lengths of time. So there's different frequency, intensity, time, type, volume, progression. And those are exercise principles.
Right.
Those are communication principles too.
Yeah. I usually tell like PT students, take like improv classes
Oh, it's gold.
or, watch like Tina Fey or Amy Poehler just did one on like masterclass. Just watch it over and over again and follow those principles as you're working with people.
Yes.
Just sort of know when to insert yourself, know when not to, when to just go with it, when to sort of push back in the other direction. And it's amazing the difference in how they interact with patients after doing that than before.
It's wild. I mean, even if you only took away yes and, which is like the
Right.
core principle of improv, which is like whatever Justin says, he's like, it's a blizzard and we're stuck in the in the Arctic, and I'm like, no, we're at a bus stop in Florida, and it's jarring. So
Right.
even if you took that principle, which is like, if someone tells you something and you're like, no, actually, it's like, no, actually is the antithesis of
Right.
yes and, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you not do that? And it's like, because it kills everything. Now, can you redirect, or are you now part of this ride? But yes, but you can't take it off the tracks, but you can redirect the tracks. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a skill I think that for some reason I'm finding like some of the PT students coming through now don't really have.
Yeah.
Um, and I think sometimes you look at what it takes to get into PT school and how competitive it is. It's very academically competitive, and it sort of
Right.
pushes towards a very specific type of person. And sometimes you miss out on some of the other skills.
Correct. Yeah, those soft skills. I'm giving a presentation at
Yeah.
CSM, and it's got 2 titles, a title and a subtitle, because I couldn't fit it all in. So it's, science isn't finished until it's understood. And the talk is aimed at researchers, people who are publishing.
Hmm.
And then when I give the talk to students or clinicians, I add on the subtitle, which is, why are these soft skills so damn hard? And
Yeah.
it's because they're skills. And what do we know about skills? I can be born with talent, right? LeBron
Hmm.
was born with talent, but if he didn't do anything, he probably wouldn't even be in the NBA, because he had to gain skills.
Yeah.
So those skills can be improved. Just because you speak English and the patient speak English doesn't mean you don't need any extra skills to improve
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
You're a crazy person like me who goes out, we lace them up, and we run for a long time. Or you're also a crazy person like me, and I coined this, and I have to start putting it on T-shirts. I do triathlons because I like to be mediocre at 3 things in one day. I like efficient mediocrity. So I'm not,
Yes.
I can't outswim swimmers, I can't outbike cyclists, and I can't outrun runners, but I can outbike swimmers, I can outrun
Yes.
cyclists, and I can outride swimmer. So, what do you take from, we'll call them endurance sports, right? I mean, you got multi-sport and you got marathon running. What do you take from those sports, or what do you bring to PT from what you learn while you're doing those things?
I think, well, my wife is funny because she always says, like, if you're expecting to get patients to sort of trust you because they do this thing, she really always says she hopes they don't see my times. Um,
Yeah, but
the
it's
it's you participate in it. I think the biggest thing for me is being really, really comfortable being uncomfortable.
yeah, that's a big one.
And you have to adapt to the situation. You kind of have an idea what you're getting yourself into when you start, and it never goes as planned.
Nope.
Um, and I always sort of say to like either coaching clients or patients who are like going to run a marathon or do a triathlon, at some point in time during the race, you're going to have a really great idea and it's dumb. You got a plan going into it. And
Yeah.
for some reason, your brain tells you, like, you know what? Try that new gel you've never tried before.
Why not?
Or, yeah, you're really good at this. You could totally bike 5 miles an hour faster and be fine at the end.
Yeah.
And no, you really don't need that extra bottle of water. Like, you'll be fine. The extra weight is not worth it. And then you realize halfway through that this was like a really bad idea. And so some of it is also just the idea of, yeah, be comfortable being uncomfortable, but also stick to your plan.
But one of the
Um,
guys that got me to take triathlon and preparing for it more seriously was this guy Rich from Northeast Pennsylvania, and he would talk to a lot of people who were younger because he was doing it for a long time, right? And
mhm.
his was just don't race like a dipshit.
Yeah,
And it's like you said, like, oh, why don't I try this new gel? Or I'm gonna try a new, I'm gonna wear new clothes or whatever. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, what are you
right.
doing? And the other thing was, and I sort of like modified what he was saying too, which is when people drink, some people have alcohol and they get beer muscles. Don't get race muscles, which is,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm feeling great. Wind is at my back, so I usually ride 20. Why don't I do 25 for a while? It's like
yep,
you will be able to do that, and you will pay for that times 10 in an hour if it's a
right.
longer ride. But you're talking about that moment where you get uncomfortable doing uncomfortable things. I did Ironman. I did Ironman Lake Placid, and then I came back a couple years later to do the half. And
Okay.
Ironman the half, I think it's July or August. Like I like hot, so I was like, all
Yeah,
right, come back to New York. I wasn't living in New York at the time. Came back to New York. I was like, I'll do Placid. It'll be great. It's a half. I'm used to it, And it was unseasonably cold, like cold,
yeah,
cold, cold. I can't remember how many years ago. I could look it up, but
yeah.
it was smoke on the water. Like we were
They never did
steaming.
that race again after that year.
So all right, so you were there that year. So we did the same one.
No, I wasn't there, but they
Oh.
didn't do it because it was so cold. It wasn't safe anymore. They didn't do it.
So I'm standing there with the girl I was dating at the time, and she was not into endurance sports. And she's looking at me. She's in a coat that goes below her knees because it was cold. Now the water was obviously warm. But I remember hearing, because then if you've ever been to Lake Placid, it's a tiny
Yep.
little town, and
Mhm.
everybody's running around town to go to the 2 or 3 shops that sell like stuff, looking for stuff you didn't bring, like gloves or
Yeah.
warm stuff. Because again, it was like
Mhm.
July or August, and I remember I'm thinking I got to pivot. So I bought socks and I was like, these are mittens now. And I'm going to wear these and I'll wear them for a couple miles on the ride when I get going. Never took them off, by the way. It was
No.
that cold because we were that wet. But I remember standing on the shore and she's looking at me like, why? This is stupid. And I think it was Jay-Z or as a movie or whatever. It gets quoted so much, but it was like, everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit.
Yeah.
Like you picked this because it's hard. And I got news for you.
Right.
Nobody's PRing today. But like you're here, you're upright. There's the sun, I think, through the clouds. I don't know. It's cold
Yeah.
as hell. But like you can quit right now and you're still going to pay the money, or you can be uncomfortable. The point was, I'm here to do some uncomfortable stuff so that I can do uncomfortable stuff later. And I know the feeling.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's a good, you could just carry it over to so many different things in
So
life.
many things.
And I think, one of the things about it is like, the Ironman races, it it just seems like a silly thing to be doing.
Yeah.
You like talk to people about it, like the patients look at me like, this is just dumb.
Mhm.
Isn't there something else you could be doing with your
Right.
entire day?
Right.
Um, and I remember when I did a marathon the first time, and my grandfather was sort of like, how long is that going to take? Like, I don't want to be in a car for that long.
Yeah.
Why in the world are you going to be running for that long? And I just sort of thought, like, I like the idea of challenging myself and seeing what I can do,
Yeah.
and just overcoming that mental barrier of, it's amazing what you can unlock when you can overcome that mental barrier of your brain saying you have to stop.
Was it Goggins that says like the 40% rule? He's like, when you're done, when your brain first says you're done, you actually got 60% less. He's like, you
Yeah.
actually 40. And like you start to learn, like you haven't met a race you couldn't finish yet. And that's not to
Mhm.
say like you're superhuman, but it's like, hey, how do you know why are you doing 3 sets of 10? What if the patient never needs to do 12? because
Right.
whatever they're doing requires 12. It's like, well, if
Yeah.
you ever challenge them, they've never done that before. So do that and sort of expand that horizon a little bit. Yeah, so I think that's good.
Yeah.
Where you are is a physical embodiment of the fact that you're trying to be an advocate for making PT just a really common entry point. I mean, you're quite literally at
Yes.
the entry point of a place that PT 10 years ago didn't belong. I'm using air quotes.
Hmm. Yeah.
So talk more about how other ways you can do that besides quite literally setting up shop right next to the shake bar.
I think the biggest thing is getting out into the community and letting people know what you're doing and that they can come right to you. And so,
Big deal.
um, I'll talk to I will say like my goal is that I think, I never really do the math, but almost 100% of our patients do not come to us with a physician's prescription. We're most people's entry point into the healthcare system. And then they really trust us to navigate them where they need to go if this isn't the place for them. And I'll, say like, hey, I'm really proud that we're here, but I'll talk to the trainers at the gym and say, if I can do this, like you guys even are a step removed from me, where there's even less of a barrier for people to come and see you. And people are just so you have to be alert for these certain things. And so I build trust with them. And then same thing, whether it's running groups or triathlon groups or whatever it might be, pickleball, any tennis, any sort of activity, just going directly to people where they are and talking to them about the thing they're doing,
Yeah.
and that you understand the thing they're doing. You can, either help them get better at the thing they're doing. We'll go talk at rock climbing gyms. We'll go sort of talk anywhere about just staying healthy and enjoying what you're doing. And the biggest thing that I would say is like not looking for any return from it.
Right.
And so you're just doing it as community outreach, goodwill, but you're meeting tons of people. They realize that you're not wearing a white lab coat and you're approachable.
Approachable as being.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and if you don't know the answer, you'll send them to somebody who does. And we'll get people who call the office and they'll say, I saw you at this thing in 2018 and you know, this is what's going on. And they'll, come in and I'll look back and realize, you know what? I don't know that I've ever had anybody call from that talk. But the return on your time investment comes eventually. But as people sort of grow to trust you, it's amazing how you can help just bigger and bigger groups of people.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time that you can pay for you can pay for a time and attention, but that's a transaction.
Right.
Earning trust is earned, and that's typically over
Mm-hmm.
time, and that is an investment, right? And you can throw that away quickly with
Yep.
something that you do that doesn't feel trustworthy or worthy of trust anymore. But people are looking for get build relationships quickly, and I'm like, I don't know that it works that way. Sometimes it does. Sometimes people, you just meet it and you hit it off. You hit it
Yeah.
off the bat. But most of the time, I'd say that bell curve, that middle, that bell curve it's built over time, and you plant seeds, and then you try to bear fruit later on.
Yeah. We just did a thing last night. So John, one of the PT who works with me, who runs our office in Fishkill, we do every couple Mondays. We go to a friend owns a running store in town, and we sit around and drink margaritas and answer questions about running on Facebook Live.
Like, why?
And
Like, that is a terribly simple idea to quite literally
yeah,
bring the audience right to you.
yeah. And our answers get more and more hysterical the further down to the end of the margarita we get.
I want to keep doing that. That's a great idea.
It's so much fun, and it's amazing how people realize that it's safe to ask a question. They sort of see you on there and you're joking around and you're laughing, and they're totally comfortable asking a question they wouldn't otherwise feel
Correct.
comfortable asking, and they love the information.
Well, that's the whole idea behind like asking for a friend. Asking for a
Yeah.
friend. I'm a little scared to. I'm tentative to ask, but I want the answer. I mean, that's what happens at professional conferences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Presenter goes up there, they give their spiel, right? Any questions? Maybe one or two people ask a question. There's always that person who actually makes a statement that it's not a question. You're like, that's not okay. Shut up. Everybody clap, 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 and then 10 people rush the stage out of 100, and they're like, "But I wanted to." where was that a second ago where the rest of us could have benefited upon the answer? But it is that weird psychological thing, but quite literally showing up in person or showing up and being vulnerable long enough shows, not tells, shows that, yeah, it's safe to ask a question and you're going to get an answer and there's nothing out of bounds. Like, I think one thing that's changed in the last 5 to 10 years is the openness and access to ask like questions about like sexual questions. That was taboo. It was, what was her name? Dr. Ruth. It was Dr. Ruth, and
Yeah,
that
right.
was it for like 50 years. And now it's this thing where it's like asking for a friend is sort of that like that bridge of, I'm going to ask a question that maybe I'm a little awkward to ask, but I like the idea of just, we're just going to sit around drinking and answer questions, because
Yeah.
that's what people, it's conversation over presentation.
Yeah.
All right, Justin,
I'm
going to ask you 5 questions, and the format is overrated, underrated. You've seen this on ESPN. It's overrated, underrated. So just answer whether the thing I throw at you is you think it's overrated, underrated, and then maybe like a little bit of why.
Okay.
All right. Up first, overrated, underrated, high-tech equipment in PT clinics. Is that overrated or underrated?
Totally overrated.
All right, why?
I think the skill is in the personal interaction, and you don't need any equipment.
It's amazing what you can do, right? I mean, remember the movie Braveheart? They were like, oh, they took away the swords and stuff. So they trained with rocks and cables. Yeah. They were like, we need heavy stuff and we got to move it around quickly.
Yeah. I look back to like during COVID and we were doing telehealth and people were at home, and it was just, my favorite thing, I have a screenshot of it somewhere, was I had a patient squatting with a potted plant over his head.
Because it's hanging, man.
Yeah. And he was loving it. He had a blast.
That would be a great screenshot. I want to share that. Yeah. Overrated, underrated, traditional marketing methods for PT practices. So I'll say traditional would be like placing an ad, running a TV campaign. Non-traditional would be like sitting around and drinking margaritas on the Facebook Live.
Yeah, I think the traditional stuff is way overrated and probably not a lot of return for your time. And you just get so much more with some of the newer or less traditional methods.
I think you're right, which is talk to me about what's important to me, and I'll listen to you all day. And also talk to me where and how I'm already talking, and then you'll be where the puck is going, as Gretzky is always saying. All right. Overrated, underrated, specialization in single sports therapy within PT. So you are just the running guy. You're just the triathlon guy. You're just the field hockey girl.
I think it's overrated. I think you limit yourself from a standpoint of opportunities. I also think you tend to, pigeonhole yourself, and some people could do that and they might be able to get a large enough audience for what they're trying to do. I also think for me, it's sort of the idea of, I want to try and help the largest amount of people that I can. And if you really niche down like that, you kind of like miss the ability to just affect all these other people.
Overrated, underrated, the role of patient education in therapy success.
I think it's significantly underrated. I think that I always tell people, the minute we go through an evaluation, once I have an idea of what's going on, I spend a decent amount of time explaining to them how the more they understand will directly affect their ability to get themselves better.
Crazy.
And so I really want to do it. I'll explain to them what's going on in a way that sort of meets them where they are. But then we'll go through some treatment stuff, some home exercise, whatever they're going to be doing. And then I usually end the visit by making them explain to me what's going on, so that I know. And I'll say to them like, hey, when you go home, you talk to your wife, your girlfriend, your kids, whoever it might be, please, how are you going to explain to them what's happening? And I want to make sure you know what's really going on, so that we can really make sure we're in the right spot.
Yeah. See one, do one, teach one. And you sort of get bought in and you sort of understand. Last one, overrated or underrated, cross-training in different sports for rehabilitation.
Oh, I think it's completely underrated. Yeah. I think the more you can get people doing different things, just broaden their horizons. And, who knows, like I was a swimmer in middle school and got into high school, and I started rowing as a form of cross training. And pretty quickly that became the primary thing that I did. And I ended up rowing in college and doing all sorts of other stuff, in the rowing world after that, all because I was going to cross train. So you don't know what you're missing out on if you don't try different things.
Try stuff. I mean, like, again, we see all the time when there's draft picks and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, was also a 5-star athlete in these other 3 sports that are not related to the thing that they're drafted for, whatever professional sport. and
Yeah.
seemed to work out for them.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right, you're off
Yeah.
the hot seat. That is overrated, underrated. Last thing we do on the show is called the parting shot. So,
Okay.
what's your mic drop moment, your soapbox statement, something that you really hammer home with PT students when you have them? What's something you want to leave with people today?
I think you should leave the clinic every day thinking how much fun you had. Whether it's the patient or you, or everybody should leave each interaction thinking that it was a good time. And so whatever you need to do to change things up or make sure, I mean, I'll say to friends, like, if I walked out of here and won the lottery, I'd come back tomorrow and do the exact same thing. And so you should sort of leave with that mindset every day.
That's a great insight, Justin. Appreciate the time. They say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Thanks for coming to ours.